I'll just get started. So I think it's been.
I think it's not turned on at night.
Oh, so it's not.
Hello?
Okay, there we go.
So they can.
Okay. I'll get started. So I think it's been 2.5 years since we met last time. It was in Chicago. At Jump, right? That was the office. We had the rooftop party. Me, Suji, you. That was like 3 or 4 people. Not a lot of people there, but I think starting from 2021 or 2020, there was Monet, right?
Yeah, very beginning of 2022.
Oh, that was pretty early actually. Yeah. I think that was a time when not a lot of people were talking about the parallel execution, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I got some questions for you here. I think Monet has been really training these days, right? We see like communities talking about it every time, every day. Investors, DJs talking about it every day, everywhere. So I'll start with this. So recently, I saw like an image of like a screenshot of Satoshi earlier. He said like 2 things he was looking at: historical proof, like I think it's like proof of history. It's kind of like Solana, right? And parallel execution.
Oh yeah.
Are you Satoshi?
No.
That's the first one. Okay, a lot of people were curious. Okay, so just based.
But even if I were, I would say no.
Okay, so based upon that, can you tell a little bit more about like, what parallel execution is? How is it different from sequential executions, and how is it better?
Sure. So with Monad implements optimistic parallel execution, which is not the only kind of possible parallel execution. For example, Solana does a different kind of parallel execution where all the dependencies are pre-specified. Like in Solana, all the transactions, every transaction has to say exactly which accounts it's going to be touching. But with Monad's optimistic parallel execution, that's not required at all. So in Monad, blocks are linear. Transactions within a block are still linear. And then the execution of transactions, it still proceeds as if it were, at the end of the day, as if those transactions just been run one after the other. But under the hood, there is strategic parallelism being done to get the work done faster. But the guarantee is that it will always produce the same result as if you had just run those transactions one after the other. And kind of the way that we do that is actually just using a very intuitive algorithm, which is basically to say we run many transactions in parallel, starting as if they were starting kind of from the same starting points. And then for each transaction, make note of the inputs and the outputs for that transaction. By input, by the way, I mean a piece of state. And output, same thing, piece of state. So for each transaction that we're running in parallel, generate a pending result which records the inputs and outputs. And then, so that's the first phase, is run all these transactions in parallel. And then the second one is to step through the transactions one by one in the original order, and either commit the pending result if the inputs have not changed, or if they have changed, then actually just rerun that transaction. And we have to halt commitment of any other. Right? Yeah, exactly. We have to halt commitment of any other pending results until that transaction can be rerun.
Makes sense. Okay. So that's the technical part, right?
Right.
And I think I've been following Mona for a pretty long time. There's one sentence that's pretty memorable at the bio of the Twitter account. You said, "What would you build without limitation?" Right? It's something like that. And it said like 10,000 TCS, right? That should be right.
Yeah, over 10,000 actually.
Over 10,000.
But it's like easier to just say 10,000.
Okay, so I believe you actually have something in mind, right? So what's going to happen? Like, let's just name several of the fast scenarios, like fast usages of such development, right? Because EVM has been bottlenecked by CPS for a pretty long time, like the whole ecosystem. And what are some of the top scenarios, the top usages for such high TPS?
Yeah, so 10,000 TPS translates to about 1 billion transactions per day. And so in the context of Web 2 startup building, if you want to get your app to be #1 on the iOS App Store, that means you have hundreds of thousands or millions of daily active users. Let's say you had 1 million daily active users with an app that was like somewhat interactive, so like say 25 transactions per user per day. And that's 25 million transactions per day. But that's already 250 TPS, which which is like more than, you know,
Yeah.
way more than Ethereum right now, way more than any L2. So a single app that can cross the chasm to mainstream adoption will actually need the throughput of Monad.
Any specific usages you right?
Yeah, so maybe I'll mention two, but there's definitely a number. So one is high fidelity DeFi, specifically moving centralized exchange trading on-chain to be decentralized, fully decentralized, where market makers, like every submit, every cancel, like basically any order update is just a transaction. And that's only possible on Monad because that kind of transaction, it's pretty simple complexity transaction, maybe 100,000 gas in terms of complexity, which is how you measure
this. This is pretty interesting because I think I remember before Uniswap got training, there was a lot of DEXs that were trying to simulate the order book on a centralized instance, but didn't work because of the gas fee or the TPS, right?
Exactly.
But it's possible now.
Correct. So just for context, like a simple action like submitting or canceling an order on Monad, actually we built a prototype. So the prototype has, it's less than 100,000 gas to submit or cancel an order. But that in Ethereum would be $5 to $50 or even more. Like I think yesterday when Bitcoin was hitting like 60K, the Gwei got up to like 150 or something. So, you know, $5 to, let's call it $100. That one action, like submitting one order, would be $5 to $100. On L2s, that'll be like, you know, 10 cents to $1. But on Monad, it'll be 1/10 of a cent.
Makes sense.
So 100x cheaper, and that 100x cheaper factor is what's needed to actually make it possible for market makers who are constantly submitting and canceling orders, adjusting their quotes as fair value changes, to actually, you know, sustainably market make directly on chain.
Watch how Uniswap.
Yeah.
This is the first one, right?
That's the first one. Yeah, the second one, I'm really just generally excited about on-chain gaming. So for example, like if you imagine playing RuneScape, you might pick up like 50 items in the course of an hour. And so like if each one of those pickups is 10 cents, it doesn't really work because it'd be $5 in gas you'd have to pay just to play RuneScape for an hour. Which I know in crypto, like that doesn't sound like that much, but like if you're like a 15-year-old kid playing RuneScape, like you're not going to spend $5 just to play 1 hour RuneScape. But that same thing will be 5 cents for that entire like 50 actions on Monad. So it's just, again, getting the scale to actually make sense.
Got it. I see Monet has a really high focus on community, right? I see like on the Twitter you talk about community every day, community first, all of these. So what do you think is the role of community in building such a successful ecosystem? At the same time, how did you build such a thriving ecosystem of community makers?
Yeah, I think everyone understands that community is really important in crypto, but like translating from that value, being like, yes, I value community, to tactically figuring out how to do that and how to grow the community in a sincere, sustainable way, I think is just something that Monad has done very uniquely. I guess if I had to reflect on like a couple of learnings, one would be just like not rewarding bots at all. Like, you know, people, because naturally like you're in sort of, especially when you're early on, you feel like validated by the fact that people are like, you know, joining the Discord and like saying GM and like whatever, like people like just talking at each other, but it's really actually just kind of like bot behavior and like people just getting hired to go like Sybil in Discords. So being very aggressively like anti that and not like caring at all about numbers, like I just think that from the start was like the first principle, because another thing I see is like a lot of projects use Galaxy very heavily, and it's very tempting because when it's literally like you know, it's like cocaine, like literally.
Big data.
Yeah, you like set up a Galaxy thing, and then every tweet that you put out will get 4,000 likes, and it's like, oh my gosh, like we're
growing so fast.
Yeah, I mean, and you know that it's cheating, but like you also are tempted to like think that will help you in some way. But actually it hurts you, because then when people go to your Twitter page, they see every single tweet has 4,000 likes, 4,000 retweets, and like 4,000 comments. They're like, oh, okay, well, one, this is obviously botted. But then two, there's like no opportunity to really go interact with it, because your comments, your real user comments, are going to be like drowned out by all the bots. So yeah, I think Galaxy is very much like maybe it might have like helped projects like at the very beginning of Galaxy, but now because everyone knows about it, it's like not actually helpful at all.
A lot of people use it to get their VC's attention.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. So if you could maybe fool dumb VCs into like funding the project because they think the metrics are, yeah, so, and yeah, to this day, like VCs still, you know, like if you're filling out a questionnaire, they'll ask you like, how many Twitter followers?
How many users do you have?
Yeah, and it's just like, yeah, it would actually even be better if you just bought Twitter followers as opposed to getting bots, because the way that they interact is like drowning out the users that, you know, you actually care about. So that's one thing. I think a second thing, we always said from the very beginning that the community is the product.
Yeah.
Not the only product, but like in the early days of Monad, it's literally the only thing people can interact with. We can't interact with the team.
That's true, yeah.
So we have to actually give a really high quality experience to people who are joining the Monad community. Like find ways to like try to add value to them somehow. I mean, it is a little bit like launching a nightclub in the sense that you literally have an empty warehouse and then you just bring together all these people that want to party, want to hang out with each other, and like you actually create a lot of value from like creating that Schelling point for all these people to party. So it was kind of like that, but then figuring out like what's the loose Jenga block for actually enabling like that to be a fun experience.
Got it.
And then yeah, the other thing is just there's no shortcuts really. So our community team is incredibly hardworking, incredibly very much in the community all the time. Like just our community team is really creative and encourage people to be really creative, create really high quality art. Yeah. Oh, so that's another thing is like just elevating high quality things and not acknowledging things that are not high quality. So like if you go to most community discords, you go to the memes channel and there's just like a bunch of like the same copy paste memes. I always see the like meme where there's Andy discarding the toy, like I don't want to play with you anymore, I want this one, and then they just paste on like whoever the perceived rival is, and then whatever. So it's just people know that there's the way to like Sybil very early stage protocols, I guess, is just to like follow the playbook of like creating memes that are local. But you know, when you get someone who is actually creating like unique art or unique contributions, then you really want to elevate that and be like, oh my gosh, look at what this person did, and you know, amplify them. Oh, one last thing, and I'm sorry, there's so many things, right?
Well, absolutely. Yeah.
But it's also because we are passionate about things, learned a lot. I would say it's also like now at this point, we're at the stage where people kind of realize that being a really involved, like high signal Monad community member also benefits them, because then they get like a ton of followers. Like any post they put out gets like 20 to 100 likes. People who are new to the Monad community, like they go and figure out who they should follow, and they always like follow these people that have contributed a lot. So it is actually like, if you're a person who's just passionate about crypto and you want to you think about crypto all the time, and you're creating content about crypto, your observations, your analysis of like which are the best protocols, whatever, all that, like having an audience that is like baked in is actually like really valuable. So I think that's the kind of the final piece of the puzzle with respect to like that nightclub effect, is creating a Schelling point for like people who are high signal, who can create unique, again, it's like art, or it's like insights, DeFi insights, trading, whatever, and actually like come and add value. Other people read that, and learn from it, and now we're at a point where people can see that. But in the early days, it was hard to see the progress, and it was more just like following the principles of what we thought was right.
Makes sense. Who do you think are your biggest competitors right now? Like in terms of, I don't know, that ecosystem community, who are the biggest competitors?
I think the biggest competitor is apathy, actually. I know that sounds cheesy, but yeah, it's just like, I don't really think that Monad is directly competing with other blockchains for
layer 2s, right?
For specific, layer 1s or layer 2s. I mean, like in some cases there might be like a specific developer that's going to build on one ecosystem or another as their home base. But I think in the longer term, it's more actually about like trying to find ways to like help the decentralized app space eat away at the centralized world's domination. We just get a certain amount of resources to be able to do that, and how effectively can we actually do that? So I think that the resources we have are like money, like tokens, etc., and then also just the power of the community. So like that would be the main thing. I guess if you put a gun to my head and said like, who are the? I mean, it's probably like Arbitrum, Solana, Sui from a technical perspective.
Does it have to be EVM?
It doesn't have to be EVM. Yeah.
It feels like EVM is like one of your advantages when compared to non-EVM ecosystems.
For sure, yeah.
They have high TVS, but they are not EVM compatible. A lot of developers can't do stuff. Cool. So let's just say if a DF wants to build Keone, what kind of support do we have? As I got a lot of friends who are trying to build they got to choose which ecosystem they want to join, right? What kind of support do you get? And hypothetically, why do you think they should be building on Monad instead of something else?
Yeah, well, I think that the biggest thing for me is less about like convincing them to build a Monad versus building somewhere else, and more about like trying to convince them to build something that has a scale such that it would need to go to Monad.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're not trying to persuade them to come, but you would say, okay, if you want to scale that much, this is the best option.
Correct. So let me also mention like a more direct response to your question, which is three things. Number one is the performance, like high throughput and low fees, like I said, a tenth of a cent for a Uniswap swap as opposed to 10 cents on L2s or $10 on Ethereum mainnet. That would be number one. Number two is the community and sort of the built-in fans that you'll get by, it's like the Monad community is incredibly passionate and wants to support things that are ambitious, that are trying to scale. And number three would be the direct support that our ecosystem team can provide to early stage entrepreneurs who are, many times first-time founders, navigating the complicated world of like hiring a team, figuring out how to grow their community, teaching how like some of the lessons we learned, helping them to hire, and then a couple other things are like just support on blocking and tackling on legal or things like that. So those would be like the reasons why we think that people should want to like collaborate with us. Those are sort of the areas that we feel like we can add a lot of value. But then, beyond that, I would say like the convincing part will mostly be about like just convincing people to like take the leap, to try to start something new and to try to start something that aligns with their passions. Because I think that's something that we don't talk about enough in startup world, is that, especially in crypto startup world, is like it's a long effort. Like you're devoting like 5 years of your life to building something. It has to be something that you're really passionate about. You want to see like everybody, like walking around Denver, like there are a lot of people here for the conference, but there are also people who do not know anything about crypto. Like building something that they will use, that will benefit them, that will like become a part of their lives. And so I think it should be less about like, oh, like it looks like this spot, there's New City and like this plot of land looks open, like no one's building blah yet. Less about that and more about like, what do you want to build? Like what do you want to see different in the world, or what problem are you trying to solve?
I mean, based upon that, I remember you went to MIT, right? And then jump and whatever. I'm kind of curious. Why did you join Web3 or like crypto in the first place, right? You've been talking about how we should be doing something that we're actually passionate about. What made you passionate about, and why did you join the whole thing?
So I really like systems engineering. I really like optimizing systems, and especially like when I see that there's a huge gap between what exists right now and what's possible, then I want to go unblock that blockage and like really just so I think it's a combination of that, and then also like just from previous experience trading, like just building computer programs that would go trade. Our one trading team would send like 10 million orders a day to exchanges, and it's like the entire Ethereum blockchain is only a million transactions per day. But the exchanges we were interacting with were processing like 500 million messages per day or something like that. So it's just like very clear that the scale of what exists right now, even like Solana is probably the most
Yeah.
About 1,000 TPS, so like 100 million transactions per day. Like, it's still clear that there's so much growth ahead for the space if we can unblock some of these technical problems that we have right now.
Got it. One last question here. I think a lot of blockchains, there are blockchains that started with a specific vertical, right? If you look at Arbitrum, they used to say themselves as the DeFi chain, right? And look at Ronin, they were the Axie, the gaming, whatever. Immutable X, they were the AMT ones. And also there are general purpose chains like OP, they didn't say what kind of stuff they wanted to focus on. What's your strategy there for Monad? You've been talking about like some of the most wanted or ideal usage scenarios, right? Do you have some kind of like specific verticals you want to focus on in the beginning, or do you just want to go, okay, here's the playground, you guys do whatever you want, I'm gonna support on you?
This is just my opinion,
Yeah,
just to be clear, like, yeah, other people in the team or other people in the community might think differently. I would say the focus, the thing I'd be really excited about is like consumer-facing apps.
Mass adoption.
Which, yeah, but also like specifically in the context of like, just like things that, like you have to pick your audience, and everyone has a slightly different audience, but like, for me, gaming makes a lot of sense because it's like many of us have played video games, like growing up or even now. And
do you play video games?
Not nowadays, but I like real-time strategy games.
Oh, okay.
Like Age of Empires. Yeah. I'm really bad at like StarCraft. I've played like once, but yes. So I think that
On-chain games are.
that is a huge thing. I think that. Yeah, but also like personal finance, like everyone uses their phone to like make a certain amount of payments, Apple Pay, etc. Like there's a clear possibility for more efficient personal finance, especially relative to like, paying like $10 swap fees with 1% slippage on Uniswap. Like getting that to be a much more efficient scenario.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, man. Yeah, thank you for coming here.
Thank you.